One of the few times I don't make fun of the Toronto Maple Leafs has to do with the fact that the great Tiny Tim was a big fan of the Buds. Now, you're saying to yourself, Tiny Tim was a fan of the Leafs? If you're a young fan of the Leafs, you're saying, who the hell is Tiny Tim? Now, but Tiny Tim, for a period of years, was considered the greatest ukulele player of all time and a pop sensation. Um, for a period almost as brief as Ole Jokinen's career with the Maple Leafs, 6 games in 2014-15, according to Toronto Star, Tiny Tim found a substantial following in the late 60s and early 70s. Born at Harvard Colorado, Tiny Tim was a curious-looking figure with long, straggly hair, wearing an ill-fitting suit while singing Tin Pan Alley songs from the 20s and 30s in a falsetto voice, oh, accompanied by a ukulele that he carried in a paper bag. Of course, he's done great covers, Tiptoe Through the Tulips, Highway to Hell. Now, The Entertainer was truly original. His recording of Tiptoe Through the Tulips, a song that already topped the charts for Nick Lucas in 29, rose at the top 20 in 68, and made Tiny Tim a sensation. He appeared regularly on television shows such as Roland Martin's Laugh-In and Tonight Show. Now, he was a devoted baseball fan, but he discovered his love for hockey quite by accident. He told Weekend Magazine 68, I said to myself, I wonder why I can do to keep myself active in the off-season. Basketball and football didn't click with me. Then I saw an ad for hockey at MSG. It was love at first sight. Now, the eccentric New Yorker became a diehard fan of the Maple Leafs. In 1945, while scanning the radio dial, he discovered Foster Ewing broadcasting a Leafs game on the radio version of Hockey Night in Canada. I wanted to have a team, so I looked at the standings in a newspaper, and there were 6 teams to pick from. Maple reminded me of maple syrup, and leaves reminded me of the tree leaves, and all reminded me of nature, and I liked that, so I chose them. Now, before Tiptoe Through the Tulips caught the public's attention, Tiny Tim's act drew the derision of crowds in the seedy New York bars in which he played. They used to throw things at me, recalled, but I was like Mr. Terry Sawchuk. I had my ukulele for a goalie stick. I used to bat away the pucks just as they were shot at me. He considered himself a goalie at heart. I once bought an official hockey puck. I used to bounce it off the wall in my room and catch it and pretend I had made a great save off the stick of Mr. Bobby Hull. If I had one final dream, it would be put on the goalie pad someday and have someone shoot at me like Mr. Jean Beliveau or Mr. Bobby Hull or Mr. Tim Horton. It would be such a thrill. Now, during the 65 seasons, he attended every home game of the New York Rangers. His unmistakable presence garnered no end of views from the fans at MSG. When Toronto was in town, Tiny Tim would wave a Maple Leafs pennant. I'd stand up and shout, "Come on, Leafs!" The fans used to throw beer at me. They would shout, "Get that witch and keep him quiet." Through good times and bad, Tiny Tim rooted for the Maple Leafs. He had his favorites too. That Mr. Horton, a wonderful player, and have you noticed that Mr. Johnny Bauer? You just can't beat him in the last 5 minutes a game in which the Leafs are ahead. Now, Tiny Tim basically was what you call, not say a modern eccentric, but eccentric with purpose. He believed in what he believed in, and he believed in the power of sport to keep his best side going. Now he had attended some Maple Leaf games, and you're seeing a photo where of all people, Mike Shaky Walton is helping him get on the ice. Now, I would think that the Maple Leafs should have reached out to Tiny Tim and have him sing the good old hockey game, the good old hockey game. Now, he had an attitude of also blowing kisses to the audience. And I noticed for a fact when he went to the Maple Leaf game, he had trouble on the ice, and that's why he was escorted on, because if you've never been on cold ice before, it can be pretty freaking dangerous. But for his appearances on the Tonight Show, the appearances on Laugh-In, the appearances, and he loved the Toronto media, and they loved him as well. It was a great time in Toronto media from about 1967 to the Joe Theismann years with the Maple Leafs, the Argonauts, and, from 71, 72, 73. And the fact was Toronto was a booming place at the time. And Toronto was still a possible Stanley Cup contender up until, the disastrous results against the Bruins and the Islanders, the Flyers into the 70s, and losing Dave Keon and other players to the WHA didn't help as well. So Tiny Tim, I think at the time of falsetto ukulele players that got worldwide recognition, he was number one. So Tiny Tim, Toronto Maple Leafs, a duet made for pop history legend. So ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening, and keep your stick in the ice.